Must-see. Trump's plan to absorb Canada as the 51st state leaves experts shocked. Analysis. President Donald Trump has reignited a long-debated and highly controversial idea, absorbing Canada as the 51st U.S. state. This audacious plan, which many experts consider improbable, has sparked intense debate among political analysts, economists, and citizens on both sides of the border. Trump claims it could address trade deficits and strengthen North American security, but critics argue it ignores Canadian sovereignty and identity. The proposal has captured global attention, generating heated discussions about its political, economic, and social implications, leaving experts and the public deeply divided. Trump's push to make Canada the 51st state stems from his administration's focus on addressing trade imbalances, especially the U.S. deficit with Canada. He argues that integration would simplify economic relations, harmonize regulations, and boost the U.S. market. However, many see it as an unrealistic overreach, disregarding Canada's established parliamentary system, national pride, and legal frameworks. Canadian leaders, including Prime Minister Mark Carney, have firmly rejected the idea, warning it would threaten sovereignty and destabilize bilateral relations, yet the proposal continues to dominate media discourse and public attention. The economic impact of incorporating Canada into the United States would be profound. Supporters argue it could create a single, massive North American market and strengthen trade opportunities, while opponents warn of economic instability and disruptions in Canadian industries. Canada's resource-based economy, its trade agreements, and provincial economic policies would face massive challenges adapting to U.S. regulations. Additionally, questions arise over taxation, labor rights, and corporate governance, as merging the economies could affect millions of jobs, investor confidence, and consumer prices on both sides of the border, making this proposal highly complex and risky. Politically, absorbing Canada into the U.S. raises enormous questions. Would Canada keep its parliamentary system or adopt the U.S. presidential model? How would provinces participate in Congress and presidential elections? Such changes would require amendments to both nations' constitutions and could provoke political upheaval. The loss of Canadian self-determination would likely spark public backlash, potentially destabilizing the region's governance. Political analysts warn that the proposed integration could redefine North American political structures and force both nations to reconsider sovereignty, representation, and international commitments in unprecedented ways. Canadians overwhelmingly reject the idea of becoming the 51st state. Public opinion polls reveal strong resistance, reflecting pride in national identity and sovereignty. Massive demonstrations and protests have erupted across major cities like Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver, emphasizing the country's determination to remain independent. Citizens fear losing political autonomy, cultural uniqueness, and control over domestic policies. Experts note that such opposition underscores the deep-rooted pride in Canada's democratic institutions and the potential for widespread civil unrest if any attempt at integration were pursued, leaving Canada's national identity at the center of the debate. In the United States, reactions are divided. Some Americans see the proposal as a practical solution to trade imbalances and a means of expanding the U.S. market. Others consider it an overreach that could harm international credibility and provoke conflict. The idea has fueled debates in political circles, with experts warning it could dominate the discourse leading up to elections. Public opinion reflects broader concerns about power, diplomacy, and economic consequences. While a faction supports the proposal for strategic reasons, many Americans worry it could create diplomatic tensions and destabilize established North American agreements. Internationally, reactions to Trump's proposal are mixed. Allies of both Canada and the U.S. have expressed concern, citing potential destabilization and disruption to trade partnerships. The United Nations has called for dialogue to avoid drastic measures that could violate international norms. European and Asian leaders have urged both countries to prioritize cooperation and negotiation over unilateral moves. Analysts note that annexing a sovereign nation could set a troubling precedent globally, raising fears about territorial integrity and international law. The world watches closely, as any developments could reshape diplomatic relations on multiple continents. Legally, Trump's proposal faces nearly insurmountable hurdles. The U.S. Constitution provides no clear framework for annexing another country, and Canadian law similarly protects sovereignty. Any attempt would require complex amendments to both nations' constitutions, approval by U.S. Congress and Canadian Parliament, and possibly referendums across Canadian provinces. Legal experts argue that even discussing the plan publicly could inflame tensions, making the proposal more symbolic than practical. These barriers make it highly unlikely to advance, highlighting the intricate balance between political ambition and constitutional law in both nations. Integrating Canada into the U.S. could complicate defense and security strategies. Canada has traditionally maintained a neutral stance in global conflicts, while the U.S. pursues a more interventionist approach. Merging military structures could create conflicts over troop deployments, defense spending, and NATO obligations. Security analysts warn that such integration could destabilize regional defense planning, increase tensions with international allies, and force both countries to reconsider their foreign policy priorities. The prospect raises questions about sovereignty, military command, and responsibility in global conflicts, with serious implications for both nations. Environmental experts highlight potential challenges if Canada were absorbed. Canada's policies on climate change, resource management, and conservation differ significantly from the U.S. approach. Conflicts could arise over energy production, forestry, water management, and carbon reduction targets. Environmentalists fear that merging policies might weaken protections, jeopardize ecosystems, and limit regional climate action. Given the global emphasis on sustainability, the proposal could trigger protests from advocacy groups and international scrutiny, further complicating political and economic discussions while emphasizing the environmental costs of such a union. Although Canada becoming the 51st state remains extremely unlikely, the discussions it has sparked highlight the complexities of national identity, sovereignty, and international relations. The debate forces policymakers to consider the balance between strategic economic benefits and the preservation of democratic institutions. It also underscores the sensitivities involved in cross-border integration and the importance of dialogue, diplomacy, and public opinion. While largely hypothetical, Trump's proposal has already influenced political discourse and revealed fault lines in North American relations that may persist for years. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for latest updates.